Phone number 615-377-0420. Whether it's for you, maybe it's for the family member who you know just can't hear as well in crowded situations as maybe they used to. Go to BrentwoodHearingCenter.com to schedule an appointment today. That's 615-377-0420. Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing, better life.
It is 10:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans were on the practice field for OTAs on Tuesday. Wideout DeAndre Hopkins spoke after practice and said this could be the best wide receiver core that he has been a part of.
I think this is one of the best wide receiver groups I've had a chance to play with on paper. So, obviously, I can come up here and say a bunch, but we haven't played a game yet. So, we'll see how it goes once we hit the field.
Players that were not out on the practice field included Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat. L'Jarius Sneed as well, all who were receiving treatment and rehabbing. College baseball, Vanderbilt took care of Florida with a 6-3 win on Tuesday in the SEC tournament, setting up a matchup with Tennessee this afternoon in Hoover. In a double elimination game, a 4:30 first pitch, the Vols took 2 of 3 in the regular season series 2 weeks ago on West End. NBA playoffs, the Celtics survived Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals in overtime with a 133-128 win over the Pacers. Jason Tatum, 36 points and 12 rebounds. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. We're happy to have you. We've got some takeaways, is what it says in my grid to start the show. How should I pronounce this?
takeaways.
takeaways.
OTA takeaways. Why say lot word when few word do trick? takeaways.
That's Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is back there making it happen. We're going to have Tyler Boyd, new Titans wide receiver, on the show at some point between 11:30 and noon. Right now, we're kind of waiting to see what their schedule looks like. Yes, takeaways is what we are going to start the show with today. We've got the dumbest thing in sports at 11 o'clock. Jackson, do they have anything that they can win for the dumbest thing in sports this week today?
They do.
What is it? It wasn't that funny. What is it?
Something funny.
1 second. It is something funny.
Lucas,
I do know
what's
that.
it?
It's Jim
What is it?
Gaffigan tickets.
Okay, I knew that, but I didn't want to be wrong.
Funny guy, Jim Gaffigan. He'll be at the Ryman Saturday, June 1st.
Okay, so that's your dumbest thing in sports this week giveaway today at 11 o'clock. Let's start with the Titans on the practice field because we do have the Vols later this afternoon. 3HL will not be preempted for the Vols and Vandy rematch in the SEC tournament in Hoover, but they will be able to keep you updated throughout the course of that until such time as they are off the air at 6 p.m. today. So we'll run back some comments from Tony Vitello's appearance with us yesterday before we dive in. The practice field, though, I don't want to say lightly attended, but there was a good bit of star power missing on the defense.
But not because of not showing up.
Sure, which is important to point out. A lot of guys still rehabbing from injury was the word that we were given. And here's the thing that I want to start with first. There's going to be takes today, okay? There's going to be a lot of takes. There's going to be a lot of analysis.
Like what, Buck? Give me an example, please.
Like L'Jarius Sneed already missing practice is a red flag for the Titans defense. I'm not worried about it. Not worried about it yet. You don't need to be worried about it yet. There's nothing that you are going to get out of 1 hour and, hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. It went a little long yesterday. That's something they should probably keep an eye on, just in terms of the, first-year coach organizing practices and things like that. Want to end in a timely fashion. But not to narc. But there's going to be takeaways from a very, very small sample size of football players doing football things. They don't even have pads on yet. So if you want me to come in here and tell you how much Dylan Radins may make a push for right tackle, it's not going to be today. It may not be next week, next Wednesday when we're out there. It may not be until, mid-August.
Is there anything to observe about offensive line play in OTAs other than they look big?
Yes.
Those are some big humans.
Oh, my God, that sled looks heavy. I'm glad I don't have to push it today. Those are my observations about the offensive line.
That is big guy pushing a big sled.
And anybody who tries to read into it any more than that is lying to you or being disingenuous. So I would just, like Coach Mack says, tell you to keep your powder dry about the OTA hot takes that are going to be out there floating around on the internet. Now, the stuff of relevance, because there is stuff of relevance. I saw Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Boyd on a football field at the same time wearing Titans uniforms. It was jarring. It looked very appealing to Titans fans. It looked very appealing to the ultimate goal of getting this team out of an offensive era where they've just been flatlining, and it's going to be a problem for opposing defenses. Now, I would have liked to see them work against L'Jarius Sneed. That was not an option to us yesterday. He continues to rehab. That's something to keep an eye on, by the way, Sneed, because the reports from Kansas City were what? That he has a pretty light practice schedule because they manage his health, or they were managing his health, and that the team that gave him all that guaranteed money this offseason after trading for him in the Tennessee Titans probably have a plan in place to make sure that they're managing him the best possible way as well. So this is just day one of Sneed watch, I guess. But we did see some good reps between Chidobe Awuzie and Tyler Boyd, former Cincinnati Bengal teammates. We did see some good reps out of rookie Jaquan Jackson. Did see some good reps out of Roger McCreary making breakups on Kyle Phillips. We saw a lot of good work in the 7-on-7 period, and we saw a lot of room for improvement from a player that I was interested in watching yesterday, which was Malik Willis. You can't be missing that often when it's just routes on air. And even when you've got a defender in a 7-on-7 setting, it has to be cleaner than that. That is one take that I'm willing to kind of say with my chest a little bit. I'm very pessimistic about the whole Malik thing when it was one of the things that I was most interested in watching. And it's only one day. It's only one day. And I don't know that I'm looking for any kind of like drastic improvements from the first day that I see him out there under a new coaching staff. But it was a little discouraging, I guess, to see him practice that way when there's, it's about as close to a walkthrough as humanly possible.
Jim Wyatt charted Will Levis at 7 of 10 for the day in 7-on-7s. And I brought this up with Brad Hopkins when he was in here yesterday. That's probably the group that can actually accomplish the most or benefit the most from something like OTAs, right? Quarterback, receivers, corners.
Oh, sure.
Like that, those are the most mutually beneficial groups from this period as opposed to offensive line.
Yeah, basically, no, anything but offensive and defensive line, you can get good work in. Some observations, Rashad Weaver looks physically different than I remember, and I had to check and make sure that it was just because he wasn't wearing pads out there, but he seems to have, I don't want to say slimmed down, but toned down. He looks less bulky. I think he's trying to find ways to be more explosive. We didn't get the opportunity to talk to Weaver yesterday, the way that and again, this is an adjustment for us because it's a new coaching staff, a new regime, so media is going to be handled a bit differently. We got 3 vets at the podium yesterday, and then we got 3 players on the practice field as opposed to just grabbing whomever you want as they walk off the practice field into the locker room. So the 3 players that we met with on the field after speaking with Brian Callahan were Peter Skoronski, Tony Pollard, and Sebastian Joseph Day, the defensive tackle. At the podium, we spoke to DeAndre Hopkins, we spoke to Tyler Boyd, and we also chatted with Amani Hooker at the very end of all of that. So didn't have the opportunity to talk to, for example, Traylon Burks or Will Levis or Willis after yesterday's work. The next day that will be open to media in the OTA schedule is not until next Wednesday. So we'll see what more we can learn or who else we will be able to speak to then.
Caleb Farley out there?
Yep.
When's the last time you saw him on the practice field?
Well, I did see him when they had the initial, like the early OTAs, the early offseason program for teams changing head coaches. So he has been out there before. But listen, any step for that guy is a positive step. And Brian Callahan said as much at the podium yesterday when he made the comment to the effect of there's not a lot of people who would still be out here trying to fight for it, right? When you deal with not only professional tragedy, because his professional career to date has been tragic beyond just the personal tragedy that he has experienced, which would impact any one of us no matter what we do for a living. So they have a plan in place for him as well. He is not somebody who was shelved due to rehab because there was a good amount of guys that missed. Landry did not see NPF. Now, Callahan wouldn't say specifically whether, for example, NPF's shoulder is the thing that shut him down for the year last year. Callahan wasn't going to give us specifics. They don't have to report injuries until we get to the regular season with injury reports, so he wouldn't say if NPF was rehabbing from last year's shoulder situation, but it's fair to assume. So Sneed, You have no
Sweat.
Jeff. You have no Sweat. Apparently precautionary on Tavondre Sweat because they had videos of him yesterday morning from Monday's practice out there catching passes to Titans fans' delight, and then he was not available, nor was Jeff Simmons out there to practice yesterday. And I believe I already mentioned Harold Landry.
Was Kyle Phillips out there?
Kyle Phillips was out there.
Catching punts?
I was not. I may have missed that if he did do special team stuff because I left, I think they were about 25 minutes into practice by the time I left here to go down there. So if they did special teams, I missed it.
Because I don't know if I know y'all had the segment on Monday, I think, of position battles to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Did y'all talk about punt returner? Because that's a significant one.
Well, we didn't. Well, that's not true. We did to the point of Jaquan Jackson's going to have to go out there and earn the job because they have Spears to do it just in case. But we really didn't talk about Phillips that way. Now, there's nothing to say that a new coaching staff wouldn't give him the opportunities. But just from my personal vantage point, having missed a portion of practice yesterday on the way down there, I don't know if Kyle Phillips specifically fielded punts or not. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll get back to Titan stuff later because there's a lot of NFL OTA takeaways.
OTA takeaways.
OTA takeaways. A lot of NFL OTA takeaways from more than just the Titans, league-wide. We'll take a look around. But the Jaden Rashada news and the lawsuit against the head coach of Florida, Billy Napier, is a massive story in the world of sports. And because it's a legal story, we're not smart enough. So we called the lawyer. Dan Lust is next. Welcome back to the show. Anytime we are not smart enough to talk about a legal topic in sports,
Which is always.
send out the bat signal for Dan Lust. At Sports Law Lust is where you can find him. The Conduct Detrimental podcast is where you can learn about how the worlds of law and sport intersect on a regular basis, and you can do it in a very educated and entertaining way. Hey, bud. Uh-oh.
To me, it's been a minute. This has been, we'll say, a busy time in college sports. So always happy to get the call from you guys.
Well, we tried. Dan, there's every time the NCAA gets sued, I feel like I want to call you, but I don't want to do that to you every time because you do have plenty of other, not just media engagements, but I mean, what did I see you in a cap and gown this past weekend on Instagram? What was that?
I'm a real life law school professor. I got to support my people when they graduate, biggest day of their legal career. So I'm out there supporting the kids, kissing babies, shaking hands. It's all part of a day's work.
Any Harrison Butker type messages to the group of students?
Not from me and not from anyone, because Harrison Butker is insane.
Dan Lust here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Yeah, I saw Mike McDaniel got asked for his opinion on Harrison Butker's comments the other day. And just like, yeah, actually, I've been waiting to talk about that. No, you idiots. So we're not here to talk to Dan Lust about Harrison Butker. We're here to talk to him about Jaden Rashada. So he's a former ESPN 300 quarterback recruit. He's suing the University of Florida. He's suing Billy Napier. He's suing boosters. Dan, for the audience, how did we get to this point?
Pretty sure I've talked to you guys about this case way back when, but I've been following this, and I've had people in my circles tell me, is Rashada going to sue? Is he not going to sue? And I said, well, the kid's got 13 million reasons to sue, and unless Florida and the boosters and this one, they want to pay him some large seven-figure settlement, I don't know why this wouldn't result in a lawsuit. So, I'm not going to give myself a huge pat on the back, but we have seen this coming for a while. So I guess here's the high level, and then I'm happy, to kind of break it down. In this NIL world, right now, schools are not allowed to offer money, right? These are the collectives that offer money, these third parties, the Gatorades of the world, the Nikes of the world. Anybody really but the school can offer money, and that money has to be in exchange for some form of NIL services. So it's like promoting a brand or some type of NIL exploitation, right? You can't be paid to play the sport. So those are your two big broad brushstrokes that you can't do. This lawsuit very clearly alleges that Florida crossed the line and that the coach, Billy Napier, was directly involved in these negotiations, and he is to blame somewhat for this $13 million offer that was not ever paid out that resulted in a contract, which, the allegation from Rashada, which again we can get into, is that he was induced to enter this. He was induced to flip his commitment from Miami to Florida in exchange for this $13 million, of which he never got. And therefore, he's suing for that money he should have always received. So it's a little more complicated than that, but that's at a very high level what this dispute involves.
Well, so let's work through as much of the logistics as you feel like, giving out on a radio interview as opposed to one of your law classes, because this is the first of its kind that way. And as you said, Dan, you saw this coming from a mile away. I'm sure many people in the world of sports and law saw this coming from a mile away when you have an offer like that of that kind of size for a recruit that's really not, he's a high-level player, of course, but like we're here in Tennessee, he's not even as big a recruit as Nico Iamaleava, who reportedly, and again, we don't have the figures exactly in the name, image, and likeness, but got $8 million to go to the University of Tennessee. So he was always going to be kind of a headline for this. But from Rashada's perspective, the grounds that he has to stand on and to go through with this lawsuit, I guess, how does Florida and Billy Napier get out of this any other way without outright settling?
We're peeling back the onion here. There's a couple levels we have to touch on. It's another case that I know I've spoke about on the show, that the Tennessee versus NCAA lawsuit, which certainly plays in here as well. So, from Rashada's perspective, I don't have the exact numbers, but a lot of this was done reporting by The Athletic once upon a time. Rashada reportedly, again, not my reporting, but signs a NIL contract with Miami's, not with Miami the school, but with some version of a booster or collective in the vicinity of $9 million, and then has a flip to Florida for $13 million. So he's going to get an extra $4 million for playing football for a different school in Florida. Sounds like a great deal. At the time, Rashada, I believe, was a top 10 ranked quarterback in the country. And, it's a little bit like musical chairs. Maybe the best guy will command, we'll make up some numbers, $5 million. But once all the musical chairs are settled and there's only one guy left in the top 10, maybe that guy can command a little bit more money. Now, $7 million versus $5 million versus 13, you can pick your poison. I'm not quite sure. And a lot of all this is kind of funny money. We don't really know the true reporting. So what the allegation is essentially is that he made the flip to Florida. He got paid a very small amount of money, about six-figure amount of money up front. And then the rest of that 13 never came. And Rashada never goes to Florida. Rashada basically says he was never paid the rest of that money. And then he makes the decision to transfer before playing it down at any Florida school, makes the switch to Arizona State for, this is again, reportedly, allegedly, whatever you want to say, but for no money to go play for Arizona State. So the reason we always thought a $13 million lawsuit was coming was because he never made any money at Arizona State, allegedly. So again, 13 million reasons to sue. Now, I alluded to the Tennessee versus NCAA case, which I know your listeners are very familiar with. NCAA goes to court. They look for the preliminary injunction, the temporary restraining order, and they're basically going after the NCAA and saying, you should not be able to even investigate us or punish us for actions with a collective. That's unfair. And as you guys know, Tennessee's the attorney general. They win that case, and they basically get the Tennessee investigation thrown out. So, okay, that brings us to the present. We have a situation where now Florida's coach is accused of being directly involved. It's not really, it does involve the collective, but it's a direct allegation against the coach, which was not the case with Tennessee. The precedent on the books from the Tennessee lawsuit is that the NCAA can no longer investigate or punish schools with respect to these type of actions. Now, does the involvement of a coach here, does that change the calculus? Is that something the NCAA wants to pursue? Is that something that the other member schools would be okay with the NCAA pursuing, because it's not a collective, it's the school. And that's kind of this legality question. What Tennessee did certainly helped Tennessee, but it also might make Florida immune from further ramifications directly against Napier in the school. So that's the academic question. And then there's also the question of whether the NCAA already knew about all this, and if this might be new to us as the general public, but maybe not new to the NCAA. Maybe they've already kind of waived punishment here. But, a lot of good questions coming out of this.
At Sports Law Lust is where you can follow our friend Dan Lust, sports attorney, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. You can also check out his Conduct Detrimental podcast wherever you get podcasts.
But Dan, it's nothing new in college athletics for programs, for schools to go back on promises to high school recruits, whether it's playing time, scholarships that get pulled. Like, that is always the school's prerogative to do that. So in this case, what does Rashada need? What does Jaden Rashada have to be able to get anything out of this situation? Or is there a world in which it is absolutely Florida's prerogative and the collective and boosters' prerogative to say, no, we don't want to pay this sum anymore of NIL for a guy who has not yet played a snap in a Florida uniform?
Point, Lucas. I think it's very fair. I mean, I would say there are some hurdles for Rashada, right? He's suing for the 13 because he didn't get the 9 from Miami. And you could, not that we're litigating the Miami version of this, the first NIL contract that was allegedly doled out. But what's to say he would have gotten the $9 million or the $13 million? Let's say he got hurt. There's a lot of different question marks. Where this lawsuit is tied together, right? Certainly you could say there's no guarantee from a coach that you're going to get playing time or that you're going to play, the slot wide receiver or the nickelback, right? There's a lot of questions in there. This is an allegation. Billy Napier is only being sued because of his alleged knowledge of what the Florida collective contract is. So, yeah, we could talk about sports and guaranteed playing time and all this fun stuff. But in the world of contract law, if you change your position because of a representation by someone and you sign a contract based off of a representation that was made, there is, in theory, some liability, whether it's contractual liability or a fraud-based liability or tortious interference. If you change your position and you lose money because of something someone told you, and you had a reasonable right to rely on those representations, there can be liability. I'm not saying it's an open and shut home run case with respect to Florida and Florida's collective and all the different moving parts. What I am saying, what Florida should be nervous about, is something that is patently illegal in college sports right now, for the coach to be the one directing those funds. Yes, I'm sure there are a lot of people listening to this and they're saying, doesn't this happen all the time? I'm sure it does, but this is the first lawsuit of its type to have this stuff now in open court, to have a forum where people are going to have to testify under oath, under penalty of perjury, whether and to what extent they were directing those funds. Similar concept, and again, we've talked about this on the previous times I've been on the show, right? Arch Manning signs a big deal, allegedly, right, to go to Texas. I've always asked the question, right, how does Texas the Texas One Fund or one of the collectives associated with Texas, how do they know that Texas Longhorns, Texas University, has room and playing time for Arch Manning? You would think there's a conversation in the background that occurs between Texas, the school, and the collective, but we don't really know that. That conversation isn't said, but it's quite the coincidence that the players that are getting paid those big bucks by the collective, that the schools are happy to receive them. So we're now getting a peek behind the curtain, one that's going to be done in front of open court, and depositions, and God knows who will be called in here. But this is a really unique look behind the world of NIL, and at the look of some things that very clearly on the books of college sports are not allowed.
If this continues on the trajectory, Dan, and Florida obviously not in a great spot just from an on-field perspective with Billy Napier, they haven't had the kind of success that they've been looking to have. How much does this open up Billy Napier specifically to the idea of being fired for cause and maybe missing out on a potential buyout from Florida?
To see these contracts, a lot of these are triggered by like level 1, level 2 violations. That's why this Tennessee versus NCAA lawsuit kind of throws a bone in this, right? Certainly you can have the type of incident, right? If you go back to Pat Fitzgerald in Northwestern, or even Mel Tucker in Michigan State, you could commit an act that brings the university into into embarrassment, right? That there is that type of language in contracts. If you do some form of an act, even if it doesn't result in a level 1, level 2 violation or postseason banishment, you could still get fired. I don't know what Billy Napier's contract says, but certainly this incident, again, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but there's a very clear path where you could see that this case and these incidents are going to bring Florida into, some type of bad situation in the public realm. So, I'm certainly not ruling that out, but I am concerned for those around the situation that things are going to get exposed that kind of paints the NIL world in a bad light. So, again, we'll see what comes of this. But if I'm Florida, I'm Miami, I'm asking a lot of questions, and I'm not positive that this case is going to settle so quickly. And you guys mentioned this early on, right? This is a case it's not a new case. This breach of contract or whatever we want to call it didn't happen yesterday. It happened over a year ago. It's a case that I've been lecturing on for about a year and change. So I imagine there were settlement conversations that were occurring between both sides for about a year, and those settlement conversations blew up. So once the lawsuit's filed, now we're at a point where things are going to become public, right? So I don't think this is going to get settled so quickly if it hasn't already.
Isn't that on the whole a good thing, though, Dan? Because there's so much room for interpretation in the world. I mean, maybe there's not, because there's obviously clear and obvious violations here that are putting Billy Napier and the University of Florida at risk. But just to make sure that the structure in place is more rigid, is more defined for universities, for coaches, and for the athletes, for everybody's safety and legal repercussions, isn't this a necessary evil, even if it does expose some of the more unpleasant parts of the NIL era?
Oh, it depends on your perspective, obviously. And again, a lot of this is all innocent until proven guilty, even in civil court, right?
Sure.
The burden is on the plaintiff to prove their point. So we don't know. This is all just a complaint that, you and I could go to court and we could allege that Lucas did any one of a number of bad things, and we still have to prove our case. Don't worry, Buck. I got it in. We have to make fun of Lucas on every appearance, so it's all good. But at the end of the day, right, like I in my practice, and you guys know I work with schools, collectives, and I talk about this case and say that, hey, this is the bad that can happen, right? This is it. And we'll see when the lawsuit happens, and obviously we're here now. But if you're an agent, right, or you're an athlete, and you are about to sign a $13 million contract, right, and we're not getting into the specifics of this contract, but for you to basically switch your commitment from school A to school B because somebody's telling you you're going to get $13 million, and maybe you signing a contract that says you're going to get $13 million, but in the fine print of that contract, potentially, right, and I haven't seen this to be able to speak firsthand, but let's say that contract is allowed to be terminated before you get every dollar of that 13, right? If people are more aware of the situation, the next Jaden Rashada that comes along, maybe he's going to want, hey, before I switch my commitment from school A to school B, I want a 7-figure payment in my bank account. I'm not okay with, $150, 150, 200 grand. I want an amount of money that is going to make you feel tied to me. And it's a non-refundable $1 million. So the devil will be in the details now before people make their commitments, right? Contracts are they're just paper, right? Cash is king, right? And maybe you're going to want some big upfront payment. You're not going to take an IOU. So in that sense, I think it's probably better for the space But you do, I'm not sure how much sympathy Florida is getting in your neck of the woods, but certainly do feel for that school when all they were doing was trying to pay a kid a lot of money to go play quarterback. I mean, we want to certainly reward schools doling out money, right? We want to help the athletes in that regard. But I do think this is a somewhat of a watershed moment for that type of interim period when you're agreeing before the money is paid. I think that's going to have definitely some impact on the space.
Sympathy, Dan. Kirby Smart, the Georgia coach where Jaden Rashada is giving him the green light to file the lawsuit.
Gave him his blessing.
It just means more down here, buddy.
I picture Kirby doing the sign of the cross on Jaden. I give you my blessing to go sue my rival.
Unbelievable. What you got, Lucas?
So one key part of this, Dan, is alleging that Florida had knowledge that they were not going to be able to follow up with this money. That feels very nebulous to me. How hard is that burden of proof for Rashada and his people to prove that they were offering these sums of money with knowledge that it was not going to be followed up on properly?
I could tell you put a lot of research in for this interview. That was a great question. You want to know why it's a great question? Biggest hole in the case, potentially, right? A lot of these elements are fraud. And again, we didn't get so deep into the weeds of these allegations, but that Florida is making these representations. We're going to give you $13 million. And Rashada is in his complaint. It's not the whole, 100% of his complaint, but a large portion of his complaint says that Florida did this knowing that they didn't have the money in the back end. So, let's take it with a grain of salt. I'm not quite sure what motivation Florida would have. Let's say they were in the business of just screwing Miami and they want to flip from Miami to Florida just in committing a fraud. I mean, I don't think that's too realistic. What I do think is probably more realistic, and this is getting towards the granular part, whoever's watching Rivals and these high school rankings, Rashada was a top 10 guy on some listings. And there was this, I'll say it's infamous. I wasn't there, but I've seen certainly the reports on it, that he had at least one showcase where he didn't perform as a top 10 guy. And there's maybe some change of heart on his ability to perform at the highest level. And there was some performance that he made in between the point when the conversation started with Miami and the time that $13 million wasn't paid. So then, Lucas, you're in a situation where maybe Florida intended to pay we'll say Florida's collective, intended to pay the 13, right? They made all the representations being truthful and honest, and there's no fraud. And then there was a change in circumstance, right? That's certainly possible, right? And maybe some would argue that that's still akin to fraud, but I would argue if I was representing Florida's collective or anywhere on the other side of the coin, that, I didn't make a dishonest statement. Things changed. Things changed after I made those representations. So it is somewhat of a flaw in the argument, but if you're Rashada, right, and you didn't get allegedly any money from Arizona State, and I'm not sure how much money you got from Georgia, you have 13 million reasons to fire that bullet, and the issue that, Lucas, you just brought up is somewhere in the vicinity of a 50-50 dispute. You bring it, right, and you tell Florida, hey, listen, I'm happy to let this thing play out in the public realm. Georgia's happy to let it play out in the public realm. You want to throw me $5 million, $3 million, I'll happily go away, but in the interim, I'm happy to have this thing play out very publicly in front of everyone. Or you could just pay out, cut me a check. That's the age-old litigation question. Do you think Rashada is going to pull the trigger? And for about a year, I've said I don't really think Rashada has anything to lose. I think Florida and the collective and those associated with Florida have certainly much more to lose than he does.
Dan, I don't know if you have seen this story coming out of the Philadelphia Inquirer about Penn State head coach James Franklin and alleged interference, several occasions where he allegedly interfered with the medical decisions of team doctors and trainers, and a former team doctor is testifying to that effect. Is this something that's come up in your discussions or on the Conduct Detrimental podcast?
Later today. I mean, we've seen it. I think it's anytime you talk about Penn State and doctors and cover-up, I mean, that certainly got my attention.
Sure.
I'm not so familiar with the context of why it's being brought up, but I'm certainly familiar with it. And I think everyone is, I've spoken at Penn State Sports Business Conference. I know a couple people associated with the program, but, anytime you have an allegation like that, people are paying attention. Certainly Penn State's been able to turn around the program in recent years. They've had, seen a good amount of success, but those stories, everyone takes pause, and, you remember what had happened, in the last decade. So, people are paying very close attention to it. But yeah, I don't have any inside information, but I know as much as you know at this point.
At Sports Law Lust is where you can follow him, the Conduct Detrimental podcast. Dan said he's recording an episode later this afternoon. It sounds like he's very busy, and he was good enough to make time for us this morning. Thank you, Danny.
Anytime.
That is Dan Lust at Sports Law. Whoa.
Oh!
What the hell? What's going on? Not the Penn State thing. I just read it.
The 2026 NFL
I
draft
don't care about this.
is headed to Pittsburgh.
Ugh.
I agree. I don't think we needed to sprinkle this in, but it happened. It's
Explain
news.
yourself
It's
back there. You now control the Laser Light Show. Why do you think that's worthy of interrupting the great insight and analysis that we just got from the lawyer to tell me that the 2020, not even the 2025 draft, the 2026 draft is in Pittsburgh?
I asked Lucas if he wanted it, and he said yes.
Go to break.
That's not true.
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. If you missed Dan Luss' interview, that's your loss, but that's okay. We have a podcast. You can check out the podcast, all 3 hours of the show, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. It's just search The Buck Rising Show on Apple, on Spotify. You can even do it on YouTube and rewatch the show there. Subscribe while you have a second. We did mention before we got SEC observations that there is news coming out of, well, it's coming out of Philadelphia technically, but at least being reported on by John Lucieu at Penn Live. A second-team doctor with Penn State's football team testified on Tuesday about several occasions when Coach James Franklin attempted to interfere with the medical decisions of team doctors and trainers. So this is on the main page of the Philadelphia Inquirer today. Apparently an ongoing case. This interference included a player who attempted to kill himself by throwing himself out of a window, according to Dr. Pete Seidenberg, who served as a primary care team physician during Franklin's early years as the head coach. The doctor is no longer with Penn State and practices out of state. Quote, of James Franklin, thankfully somebody stopped him, of the player. Thankfully somebody stopped him, Seidenberg said of a player who was not named in open court in Dauphin County. Suicidal player was still receiving treatment in short-term psychiatric care when Seidenberg testified that Franklin and then Penn State athletic director Sandy Barber wanted the player medically disqualified from the team, which would remove any treatment from the player and open up, a roster spot.
And remove his scholarship.
Right. So, Franklin wanted to offer basically the scholarship to another player during the upcoming offseason. So it's a really, really bad look. And, right now it's alleged what's going on, but it's being alleged by the former team doctor, and anything going on with Penn State and the medicals at all, and a team doctor coming to the fore and saying, hey, red flag here, you have to give it its due diligence, even, if you're innocent until proven guilty. It's a really, really bad look, allegedly. No seamless way to transition to Bert, but you did this.
Let's talk about baseball. SEC tournament happening now. LSU leading Kentucky 2-0, bottom of the fourth. Kentucky's got runners on corners with 2 outs, looking to get on the board. But double elimination game. So Kentucky LSU is matched up with Arkansas, South Carolina. The winner plays the winner. The loser plays the loser. But of course, yesterday, Vanderbilt gets out to a 6-0 lead over Florida. They hang on to win 6-3. Bryce Cunningham on the mound, 77 pitches. So do not expect to see him, of course, today against Tennessee, because Vanderbilt moves on to the double elimination portion. And they move up, by the way, to the number 22 spot in the RPI. There, I think, is a feeling that Vanderbilt is probably safe when it comes to the NCAA postseason. Obviously playing Tennessee only 2 weeks after the Vols took 2 of 3 on West End. And the big question right now for Tennessee is, when do we see A.J. Russell? I know we asked Tony Vitello that yesterday on the show. This is what the Vols head coach had to say.
It's been tough because he's a competitor. He wants to be out there. Dylan Cruz was the best hitter in college baseball last year. And I remember over the walkie-talkie where we communicate with our bullpen coach, I could hear A.J. saying he wants, basically, I want that guy. I want to face him. And, no disrespect to Cruz. It was more A.J. is kind of like Simo. He wants to compete. He wants to be involved. So we've had to kind of temper it a little bit, because the team having success has bought him time where we can be a little more patient, because even today, I wouldn't say he's at 100%. He's been working his way back to 100% and to where he can be comfortable facing hitters. And the team having success has bought him time as well as us. But I think it's go time. We're in the postseason. He's wanting to go. And having said that, again, I think he's working his way to 100% and building up pitch count. So we're not looking for a guy to come in and save the season, or it's not like we traded for Roger Clemens at the deadline. It's more, he'll feel great. We'll feel great about him being involved. And if he can get us 4, 5, 6 outs this time of year during a given week, I think everybody knows how big it is.
So we'll see if we see A.J. Russell today. Probably see more of a bullpen game from Tennessee today. I think we see J.D. Thompson for Vanderbilt, who is the lefty that earned the win against Tennessee with 6 shutout innings, shutting out Tennessee in that game, ending that losing streak. Tennessee's had some trouble against lefties this year, so that will be interesting. The winner of this game gets the winner between Texas A&M and Mississippi State. The loser gets the loser, and 4:30 is the first pitch. 3HL will monitor and toss to Vault Network if needed.
Speaking of monitoring, we'll monitor what's going on at the Titans practice facility because wide receiver Tyler Boyd going to join us coming up next.
It is 10:58. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans were on the field for OTAs Tuesday. Head coach Brian Callahan met with the media after practice and talked about how some of the players he inherited are fitting into the new offense.
They've been great. I mean, I think we got good football players, and those guys tend to fit in every system. I think, as I've said before, that they have the ability to do really whatever you ask of them, and you find out what they're most comfortable with and the things they can execute at the fastest speed and the highest tempo, and you keep going from there.
College baseball, Vanderbilt took care of Florida with a 6-3 win Tuesday in the SEC tournament, setting up a matchup with Tennessee this afternoon in Hoover in a double elimination game. 4:30 is the first pitch. Vols took 2 of 3 in the regular season series against Vandy 2 weeks ago on West End. Elsewhere, Mississippi State staging a walk-off comeback with a 2-1 win over Ole Miss last night in Hoover, and LSU currently leads Kentucky down in Alabama. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
OT takeaways. Lucas invented a new word to talk about OTA takeaways. We're going to get into some more from the Titans on the practice field here in just a little bit. Wide receiver Tyler Boyd is going to join us in the next couple of minutes. We'll get his perspective. Apparently, he arrived in town on Monday, hit the practice field on Tuesday. So on day 3 of his tenure as a Tennessee Titan, we'll see what Tyler Boyd has learned or found out or tried today as he gets acclimated to a new place for the first time in his career. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch the collection, the whole group of wide receivers that the Titans have put together over the course of the last couple of months. It's as deep a unit as ever it's been. It's as talented a unit as ever it's been. And Tyler Boyd is going to have a very specific role here. He's had a very specific role his entire career, working out of the slot. And Tyler Boyd, Titans wide receiver, joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Tyler, we appreciate you taking some time this morning. Have you gotten used to hearing yet, after 8 years in Cincinnati, Titans wide receiver Tyler Boyd?
How y'all doing, man? I appreciate y'all for having me. But no, it's still a new thing for me to try to get used to.
No, we're very happy to have you on the show. Titans fans are just tickled to death that you're on their football team, because this is a place that has, you know, had its issues getting quality wide receiver play in the history of the franchise. So to have a collection of, or a group of you guys that's as accomplished on the front end and as talented on the youth side of things as this one appears to be, it's got the fan base pretty excited.
For sure, man. Yeah, you know, I'm just happy and blessed to be a part of this organization. I'm just ready to get rolling and help this team win.
Absolutely. So with that, you hit free agency for the first time in your career, if I'm not mistaken, this offseason, yeah?
Yeah.
So what the hell was that like? That seems like a very, very stressful time in a player's life, especially if you haven't had to deal with all the stresses of that previously.
Yeah, very stressful. You know, like you said, it was my first go-around free agency, you know, and initially I thought it would go a lot smoother than it had, you know, so you kind of got to be patient, and it's like a roller coaster ride. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you get to weigh out your options and figure out the teams that fit you the best, you know, and still give you a little time to just figure out the options that you have. And at the end of the day, I knew the Titans was one of the top teams that I felt that I could be a part of.
Well, because we put it out on social media that you were going to be hopping on with us today, Tyler, and I asked the audience if they had anything specific that they wanted to ask you, and I was surprised by this particular question from one of the listeners, Shane. He tweeted us and said, why not go to a contender if you're Tyler Boyd? And I wonder if you look at that the same way, because the Titans are obviously building something here. It's not right. Anything that's a proven commodity yet. But even to get that question from the fan base, that surprised me a little bit. Did it surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I trust in Cali's ways of operating, you know, because he had done it when I was in Cincy. You know, he helped build that team, you know, and this team is going through that restructuring deal, but we got a handful and loaded amount of talent that we got in free agency and in the draft, you know, and I just felt like I was probably one of the few missing pieces that can put everything together to put us on the top and mentioned as a contender team, you know, because I mean we have the depth, we got the two corners, we just came in and Sneed, we got Hop, you got Ridley, got me, and we have a great offensive line. The D line even crazier with Simmons. I mean, on paper we have a contending team, you know, we just got to put it all together, and I'm here to help do that.
For you, working primarily, not exclusively, but largely out of the slot for the bulk of your career, I saw some headlines out of Cincinnati, the Sultan of Slot. Have you heard that as a nickname before?
No, that was my first time hearing it.
There's a couple of headlines on the Bengals website. I thought it might be. It's probably not the best nickname in the world, but it's not a bad nickname at all. Right. For you though, at working out of the slot position in this system that you've been very familiar with for the past 5 or 6 years, how much can you help define the throws for a young quarterback who's trying to maximize his success here in Will Levis?
I think hugely, you know, because like you said, with me being a vet and I understand the offense and where I should be rather than where I got to be, you know, because at the end of the day, it's about inches and yards, and it's football. You know, it's easy to draw up a route for me, but I'm kind of good with kind of knowing what my quarterback is thinking. You know, if he going to his progressions and I'm supposed to be 5 yards to the hash and I see a linebacker there, then I know if he sees that, he knows I should be on the other hash, you know, to try to find an opening window for me. So I just think me having great feel in a slot and maneuvering throughout the middle of the field is going to help him, you know, get rid of the ball quickly and not hold it as much, because I understand the offense a lot and where I should be when he wants me to be there.
Titans wide receiver Tyler Boyd is here with us on 104.5 The Zone.
Tyler, you were heading into year 5 of your career when Joe Burrow came into the league as a rookie. Just what do you remember about working with Joe as a young quarterback, and what have you taken from that experience and now carrying it over with Will Levis, obviously going into year 2?
Yeah, I think it's a little different in the comparison of those two, not on a skill level, but based off of with Joe coming in, I kind of only had 1 year under my belt in our offense, I believe, and I still kind of had to maneuver and kind of still work through my ability into the offense as well. So I still was going through a learning curve just as well as he was, you know. So we kind of picked up that chemistry throughout years playing together, you know, and me being a part of that system already flourishing here, having that same system, and with Levis, I think it'll help him grow faster because I already got an idea. Like I said, I mentioned before that I already know where he expects me to be, you know, in certain plays or when certain coverages come about. I'm like I said, I'm real good of trying to maneuver through different holes and finding the right one so he can find me sooner, and I think it'll just help his progression.
All right, so you got here Monday, right?
Yes.
Practiced on Tuesday.
Yep.
And today you are at the facility, I assume?
Yep.
So when do you get a chance to catch your breath and kind of take in your new surroundings? Because that all feels like it'd be a bit of a, you know, your head swimming for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, a new beginnings come, you know, and just trying to feel acclimated and get comfortable here, you know. And, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm here to play football, you know, and I know it's real great people in this building, from the coaches to the players, who's going to gravitate towards me and who's going to just help me get through my way and navigate me around the building. So, I mean, as the days come, I'll kind of get confident in where I'm going and things like that, but I don't think it's too bad right now.
How much of a help was Calvin yesterday? Not that Calvin was the only help to you out on the practice field, Calvin Ridley, but we just noticed how vocal he is with all of his teammates, with you, with Traylon, with Hop, with Callahan, with Nick Holtz, the offensive coordinator. How active was he in kind of getting everybody up to speed or trying to help workshop things yesterday?
Yeah, it's huge, you know, because that's our guy, you know, and he came in free agency as well, and just him having his presence there and being vocal, something that I kind of pride myself on as well. But it just brings other guys confident, and it just shows that how much he loves the game, and it's not just about money, and he's about building long-term relationships with guys who he's working with, throughout a whole football season, because that's huge, because there's going to be times where some guys might come in the building and not feel like doing something, but as long as you give some type positive energy, then they can kind of use that to get by throughout the day, So just having his energy and his presence, I think, is what a leader is all about.
Callahan's talked before in previous interviews. I think it was at the owners' meeting. He was sitting down with some people at ESPN talking about the idea of using Calvin in the mold of Jamar from the previous offense and with the previous collection of players that you guys had in Cincinnati. Not that Jamar Chase, obviously a very, very high-level player. Calvin is as well, so not trying to do any comparisons there with the individuals. But in terms of the system and what it sets up for all of you guys, beyond just being able to separate yourselves, how much does Callahan help you as a bonus to create these open windows to throw into and help with that level of separation that you're able to create as an individual?
Yeah, it's huge. Well, back to the Chase and the Ridley thing. I think he meant like they can play the inside and the outside. So it's so many more ways that he can get Ridley the ball. And just in the offense in general, it can free up and move a lot of people around and getting them free access catches and just getting guys the ball quickly, so you could just let your playmakers make plays. And I think that's so significant in the offense, because it's not just people just getting to play and standing there and not moving and not be able to create different mismatches and try to pull different leverages from the defense. So it's kind of great that this offense is run like that, because it's like the sky's the limit. You can put any guy in the same position and just call it different, and guys running different routes all the time. And with Red, like I said, man, he's a special player. He's a guy you can put in the backfield, you can put him in the slot, you can put him in the outside. So I think that's was the comparison of how Callahan was trying to explain it.
So, Tyler, I'm not sure if you know this, but upon your signing with the Tennessee Titans, you are now the second professional athlete in Nashville with the name Tyler Boyd. Nashville Soccer Club with the U.S. international Tyler Boyd, an attacker that they acquired from L.A. in the offseason. Are you familiar with this, the sport of soccer, MLS in general, and what kind of competition should we set up to determine the number one Tyler Boyd of Nashville sport?
Yeah, it's so crazy because I really don't know the guy as much, but like on Twitter, and people tweet at you, I will always get different tweets for him. So I kind of know him, but I don't really know him, But
Wait, you are not getting tweets, Tyler, about the other Tyler Boyd's performance in Nashville SC games.
But it was just coming so frequently. I was just like, dang, like I did not know it was another Tyler Boyd, But I hope nothing but the best for him. Hopefully, I get to meet him and we could just chop it up and just become closer friends since we're both here, But as far as the competitiveness, not nothing I can come up with off the head. But the name is just a great name. So hopefully he has a great season.
Tyler Boyd, Titans wide receiver Tyler Boyd, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Tyler, we appreciate you taking some time. I know you like you said, you've been busy the past couple of days, so not the most flexible time in your schedule, but we appreciate you stopping by. Continued health and success, and looking forward to getting to know you a little better throughout the course of the season.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate y'all for having me. I'm looking forward to talking to y'all soon, too.
That's Tyler Boyd with us on 104.5 The Zone. New Titans wide receiver, first time not being a Bengal in his career after 8 great years in Cincinnati. Lot to break down, lot to digest from that. We also have additional OT takeaways. I hate that word so much. I hate it more than Rand's Bargans.
Good.
All of that next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. We'd be happy to have you. It's a fun chat with Tyler Boyd there. Hasn't had the opportunity to experience much of anything but football just yet, but that's the thing that you care about. Tyler Boyd experiencing the most, so that's good. From yesterday, he talked a lot about, the free agency process, about what he's stepping into, about Levis specifically, and I thought he kind of explained. You weren't trying to make a comparison between Levis and Burrow. Like, I understood the question, but I thought he kind of explained how much more basically he's going to be able to help Will than he was able to help Joe at the time, and why that's so much more valuable here than it was at the time in Cincinnati. Not that he wasn't valuable in Cincinnati. Obviously, that was a very, very successful trio that was working with Joe Burrow during the time that they had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Boyd together. And when they're all healthy and available, it's one of the most unstoppable combinations of skill players in the league. But for Will, even if it's not like, I don't know, Tyler Boyd's 29, going to be 30. Let's say he's not like peak Tyler Boyd. What was the article that the Sultan of Slot is?
I like that.
I think it's terrible.
I think it's awesome. I love that song, so that's probably why. I'm a little biased.
Sultan of Slot?
No, man, the Sultan's a swing.
Oh.
Come on.
How was I supposed to get there from that?
Jackson, we're coming back to that in the next break. You don't tell me you've heard the song.
Yeah, I've heard it.
Dire Straits.
I'll take your word for it. How many years are we going to do this?
Yeah.
With all the pop culture references that you throw at me, just landing like dead fish.
But Tyler was coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons going into Joe's rookie year, but like in 4 years of his career. But like you said, he was only coming off one season of being in that Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan offense. So now he's had, 5 seasons of it under his belt. And from his chat with y'all yesterday, it sounds like, the playbook is rolling over, is the way he made it sound. I'm sure there are tweaks and things that are different based on the personnel, but Brian Callahan is bringing that offense to Tennessee.
Well, I dare say, and I'm going to be careful with this because I don't want to say anything until after I've seen it in practice. Not just like, not literally in practice, but on the field against a different kind of an opponent, an actual opponent. But I would say that there's a possibility that this could be the more dynamic offense, not because of the receivers, just because of the receivers, but because they didn't have running backs like Spears and Pollard together in Cincinnati.
Just Mixon.
Mixon was the primary guy. Now they had a couple of years, and I don't think Callahan was there. That would have predated Brian Callahan. That would have been like Gio Bernard and what was it, Jeremy? Who was the LSU running back that they had?
Hill.
Jeremy Hill.
Yep.
Because they had a couple of years where they had good combinations of running backs, but not like dynamic playmakers who are also threats in the passing game. And you'll hear from Tony Pollard on that a little later on, because I did speak to him for a couple of minutes yesterday. But the dynamic level of the offense is going to be plus here because you can do so much with interchangeable personnel. That's why the depth at wide receiver is so important. That's why the running backs, and I got into it a little bit with somebody last night on primetime because somebody asked me, the way that they phrased the question immediately made me have a bad reaction, but he's like, who's going to be our first down running back? And I was kind of like, what do you mean first down running back? Like, I've heard people talk about third down running backs before, but like first, you mean starter? And even the idea of having a starting running back in this offense doesn't compute to me because the whole point is you don't have to. You don't have to get married to just one of them. In the same way that you don't have to get married to the idea of like Jamar Chase, his role, that's now Calvin Ridley. Well, Tyler Boyd just told you why that makes sense for a couple of different reasons, not just saying, okay, every route that Jamar Chase ran in the Bengals offense, that's going to be Calvin Ridley, full stop. They're going to be able to slot them in a couple of different positions. Yes, Tyler Boyd's going to be the primary slot guy, but like, Lucas, I feel like people have in their heads, and maybe I'm boiling this down too much, but when you think of a 3 wide receiver formation, I feel like most people are probably picturing 1 wide receiver out to the right, 1 wide receiver out to the left, and a slot guy in between them, right? there's so many different ways that you can deploy a slot receiver out of bunch formations, out of different kinds, out of empty sets, out of all these different ways that you can use them without it just being like the conventional X, Z. I think Rand Carthon called it the F, the slot player in their offense. For the wide receiver alignments. You're going to be able to move these guys all over the place and still find ways to get advantageous matchups.
It's an interesting thought that Brian Callahan has more at his disposal in that regard than Zach Taylor does this year. And I see that argument. You know who the running back one is right now? You remember? Who landed in Cincinnati?
Is it a former Houston Texan? Is that right?
No, in the division, former Titans killer last season. One time. Yeah, Zach Moss.
Colts legend Zach Moss.
Yes.
Titans killer.
And you have Jamar Chase obviously coming back. The T. Higgins situation is still up in the air, and I know we'll talk about that.
He's going to play for them, but he's not showing up at OTAs.
And Jermaine Burton is in there, the receiver out of Alabama. So otherwise, Trenton Irwin, Charlie Jones kind of make up that wide receiver depth, but there's a strong argument to be made. I forgot Logan Woodside is in Cincinnati.
Titans legend.
But there's an argument to be made. The Titans have more options in terms of skill positions on offense than the Bengals do. But either way, that matchup, that December matchup between Taylor and Callahan is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, it's not to say that like Calvin Ridley is a better option than Jamar Chase, but I think the collection of them gives you more at your disposal than you might have had in Cincinnati this year, which is just crazy to think about. So offseason continues on. There's takeaways all over the league, not just in Tennessee. And I guess the thing that headlines it, so what's the bigger headline right now in the NFL? Because the Cowboys are always going to take up airspace. But there's nothing really going on with the Cowboys other than Dak's kind of holding them hostage in a contract situation.
Yeah, and Micah Parsons was not present at OTAs, but I think that's something where he had an obligation, something like that he'll be back for in-house stuff next week and for minicamp. So, yeah, the biggest news right now is what deal is going to get done first, right? I mean, what market-setting deal? And right now, that seems to be Justin Jefferson. As far as one that's in the works at the moment, he's not at OTAs. He's still in talks with the Vikings. Same goes for Brandon Ayuk, but you're probably not looking at a Amon-Ra St. Brown market-setting deal for Brandon Ayuk.
Well,
I don't know.
That depends on who gets to market first, Justin Jefferson or Brandon Ayuk, because the Justin Jefferson contract is just floating out there like an albatross. The more complicated one, the more interesting one to me, because is Minnesota the playoff team this year?
It's so hard to say that.
No, I don't think it's that hard at all. I think a rookie quarterback with a lot of questions on that roster right now. I think that it's fair to say if Minnesota makes the postseason, it would be a surprise.
In the way that it kind of was with the Texans, right? All the success the Texans had with Stroud as a rookie.
Sure, because nobody could have seen that kind of play coming from C.J. Stroud prior to actually seeing it play out throughout the course of his rookie season. So there's nothing to say that J.J. McCarthy can't, be historically unprecedented the way that C.J. Stroud was. But, probably fair to expect that he's not going to break all the rookie records.
But he doesn't have to, though. He doesn't have to break all the rookie records for the Vikings to make the postseason.
Let me not get bogged down in Vikings postseason talk, okay? The more interesting situation hovering out there right now in the news cycle, I think, is Tua. Because Tua is the only one of those quarterbacks that got drafted in that class that hasn't gotten a second contract yet. And Tua is coming off a very, very good box score scouting year. Tyreek Hill is coming off a year where he is a legitimate MVP candidate, again, if he's healthy. They've got arguably a better trio of wide receivers than they did last year in Miami, adding Odell Beckham Jr. to the mix, to Waddle and Hill, because I love OBJ as a 3 in that system. I think you're probably going to see, I bet it's a closer version to the OBJ Rams than Ravens last season. So that's interesting. But the Dolphins did, make some decisions. They lost 2 quality starting offensive linemen. They paid Aaron Burr $7 million a year. They have let Christian Wilkins walk to the Raiders, I believe. That's where the defensive tackle is?
Yes.
And they didn't necessarily address a couple of different needs that they have on defense. Xavier Howard is still out there on the open market, isn't he?
He sure is.
The free agent corner. So there's a couple of different parts and pieces there. But the Dolphins quarterback situation, Tua is probably the one that when he gets the Goff contract or the Burrow contract, just because he's up next, that's the one that people are going to take the most issue with.
Lawrence is one to keep an eye on there, too. But yes, I see what you're saying with Tua. He's been at OTAs. He's reporting. The story around Tua is not even about contract discussions, even though he's going into his fifth-year option. It's that he's dropped 10 to 15 pounds, that he's down to like 220, the lowest weight he's been at in the NFL, which is interesting to me because when I think of Tua at Alabama, I think dual threat quarterback. I think running mobile in the pocket. Coming out of high school, he was a 5-star dual threat quarterback. We haven't seen that element of his game at all in the NFL. So that was interesting to me when I saw it pop up. But I don't know where things kind of stand there in terms of his contract negotiation.
It's one of the best offseason tropes of all time. X player is coming in at X amount of weight lost or X amount of weight gained, because Lamar's doing the same thing.
Well, the evolution of Lamar's weight has been funny because he came into the league desperately needing to add weight. Then I guess he got too big, and now he's having to come kind of back down a little bit to get some of that edge athletically back. I don't know. It's interesting.
So we'll have more time to cover OTAs throughout the course of the week. And Cam Wolf of the NFL Network is going to join us either tomorrow or Friday, working on a time with Cam. And we'll have Coach Mack as well. So we'll be plenty of football talk locally and around the league for the remainder of the week. But in the meantime, we got to do a thing. I just, like, sometimes it's funny and sometimes... Six 615-737-1045 is the number. If you call in and give us the dumbest thing in sports this week, you win, Lucas.
2 tickets to see Jim Gaffigan at the Ryman Saturday, June 1st. So we're talking about a week from this Saturday. A very funny man, Jim Gaffigan. Go see a great comedy show at one of the coolest venues in Nashville, if you give us the best submission.
615-737-1045. If you call in and give us the dumbest thing in sports this week, we'll send you to see Jim Gaffigan. Okay, my dumbest thing in sports this week came out of Titans OTAs yesterday, and it's the way that DeAndre Hopkins got aggregated. And it's not because DeAndre Hopkins tried to get aggregated. It's not because DeAndre Hopkins went on social media afterwards and clarified his comments while being aggregated. It's the fact that everything that this man says has to be turned into a headline by all of NFL media, and that is not something that I think I've experienced. Derrick Henry was not that kind of, like, quotable athlete. Hop is a very, very famous person. He's not just a famous football player. He's an internationally famous human being, so fair to expect he will draw some level of news coverage. But he was asked yesterday by our friend Steve Lehman at News Channel 5. He was asked if we, and Lehman meant media and fans, if we, as media and fans, were sleeping on Treylon Burks. And Hop looked at him with a little bit of side-eye and said, how do I answer that in a way that doesn't produce a negative quote? He looked at Lehman and he said, nein, which means no in German, okay? So he's saying, no, you're not sleeping on Treylon Burks. The way that Hopkins received it was he's not answering for people, he's answering for the locker room. No, nein, we're not sleeping on Treylon Burks as a Titans organization. He was then asked a follow-up by, I can't remember who specifically, maybe PK asked him the follow-up. I can't remember who exactly.
We have the audio.
Atwell Jackson's on the phone, so I was trying to stall for a little bit. See how Lucas threw you under the bus?
He's a pro. He's giving the thumbs up.
See how Lucas threw you under the bus?
Let Jackson cook. You're underestimating Jackson.
I had my hand on the mouse waiting for you to throw it to it while I was on the phone.
That's what I'm saying.
Trust me,
You underestimate this man.
Both of you shut up and let me hear from DeAndre Hopkins.
No, I don't need to talk to Treylon about anything. Treylon's a grown man. You know, he gets it.
Are we sleeping on him a bit? Outsiders looking at that group and the additions?
Trying to answer that without like a negative sound bite. Are we sleeping on Treylon? Nein means no in German.
What are the possibilities for Treylon this year, do you think?
I mean, Treylon's one of the most athletic people I've ever played with. The guy's as big as he is and fast as he is. So I'm looking forward to see what he does this year.
Okay, that got turned into, oh my God, DeAndre Hopkins just said that we're sleeping on Traylon Burks or something like that. It got spun out of control. Hopkins had to get on the internet and clarify and then put out, I think, that specific video, that last part of it, saying, no, this is how I feel about Traylon Burks. It was on the back half of the question. Don't try and take the way that I tried to avoid putting a negative headline and spin it into a negative headline.
I'm confused. I'm confused at what people are confused about.
The aggregators, so like you've seen these accounts like JPA Football or ML Football.
Dove Kleiman.
Yeah, Dove Kleiman, right? Not actually real people, but people aggregating to, drum up their follower count on social media by running with anything in the NFL, quote unquote, news or rumor cycle. So I see ML Football put this out yesterday after DeAndre Hopkins speaks. Well, I'm going to have to scroll back for a little bit, but basically saying, damn, DeAndre Hopkins basically no commented on Traylon Burks. Is what got put out there by the aggregators, okay? And that, then spins up because athletes don't discern, and that's fine, don't discern between the aggregators and us. And I think Hopkins found a specific quote from Terry McCormick about the 9 thing that he wanted to clarify. He said, no, I wasn't speaking for us as a locker room. I was saying I can't speak for you guys. All this other stuff, and so it's got spun into, it was just confusion. It was confusion, Hopkins clarified, and it turned into a news story that was, a non-news story. That's my dumbest thing in sports.
A 9 news story?
What'd you want there?
I'm looking at you for affirmation, Jackson.
Good job, bud. You're killing it.
Thank you.
What's your dumbest thing in sports?
My dumbest thing in sports this week is Aaron Rodgers. He's
the
back.
way you looked back there, just because you stared at me for a minute and you knew I wasn't going to give it to you.
Jackson, please.
The way you looked over your shoulder at Jackson to say, not even a chuckle, not even a smirk while your microphone's off back there. No, you don't get a laugh for that.
Can we hear from Aaron Rodgers on his off-season options?
Bobby, we had a couple really nice conversations, but there were really 2 options. It was retire and be his VP or keep playing. And I want to keep playing.
He is, of course, talking about, is it Robert Kennedy Jr.?
Yeah, the guy with the worm eating his brain.
Who reportedly...
Who may be the most qualified presidential candidate, by the way.
Reportedly, who had interest in Aaron Rodgers as his vice president. The 2 are close. By the way, did you know that Robert Kennedy Jr. is married to Cheryl Hines of Curb Your Enthusiasm?
No, I didn't.
Yes, Larry David's wife for
That's wild.
The majority of that show.
What does she think about all this, I wonder?
I mean, she's by his side. Yes. Aaron Rodgers mulling over the options of being RFK Jr.'s VP and continuing his NFL career is just what a world that we're living in. And maybe he was saying that a little tongue-in-cheek. I don't know. But Aaron Rodgers back at OTAs, flinging it around. He will not be running for vice president.
This was the music that was playing in all of our heads while Lucas was looking around the room looking for affirmation on his joke that was just terrible.
Thought it was good.
615-737-1045 is the number. If you give us the dumbest thing in sports this week, we'll send you to see Jim Gaffigan. Jackson.
Mine comes from Conference USA. They have an official pickle. They have partnered with a pickle company, Sucker Punch, and they have a multi-year partnership to make Sucker Punch products the official pickle of Conference USA. Why do we need an official pickle for a football conference?
Do you know how popular pickles are as just like snack foods? Like people are selling individually packaged pickles as snacks.
Yeah. What is the difference in Conference USA aligning with the pickle company and, any other, let's say, for example, the ACC aligning with Lay's or the SEC aligning with Lay's chips? What's the difference? It's money.
It's just odd. It's a pickle.
They need money.
It's a pickle company.
Everybody likes pickles.
It's strange. It's odd. It's strange. I don't like it.
Okay.
I do enjoy a pickle though. I'm sure a Sucker Punch pickle is wonderful, but I just don't get a conference partnering with a pickle company.
Money, Jackson. Money.
Money is the answer to all of your questions, always and forever. All right, we'll get your phone calls on the dumbest thing in sports this week coming up next. If you give us the best one, the best submission, we'll get 2 tickets to see Jim Gaffigan coming up when?
a week from this Saturday.
A week from
At
this
the Ryman.
Saturday. 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back to the show, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Lunch is around the corner, as evidenced by Lucas stuffing something into his face while we're coming back from commercial break. What is it?
Cookies.
Okay. Be smarter than Lucas. Go get Hattie B's instead of cookies
Or
for lunch.
both. Or both. Actually, their desserts are phenomenal.
Banana pudding?
Banana pudding, always a hit. Peach cobbler. You get a free dessert, by the way, just by downloading the Hattie B's app.
You should do that, and you can mobile order Hattie B's to your home, your office, anywhere that you want to. Hattie B's has you covered. So we're in the midst of the dumbest thing in sports this week. 615-737-1045. You give us the dumbest thing. We will send you to Jim Gaffigan at the Ryman a week from Saturday. Will be a great show for sure. Any show at the Ryman's a great show. Has anybody ever had a bad experience at the Ryman? I'm sure there's somebody out there in the world that exists. But I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who's been to any show at the Ryman and said that they hated it or had a bad time or whatever.
I certainly have not.
Let's start with Jim, who works in finance. Hey, Jim.
Hey, guys. My dumbest thing in sports, if we'll ever get confirmation if it was true or not, if the NFL actually took in consideration Taylor Swift's tour schedule when making out Kansas City's schedule this year.
Let me put you on hold, Jim, because I don't know whether that's been reported on or not. I did see something like that out there on the internet. I didn't read into it too much, but basically that there is some level of discussion. I think the schedule maker was on Schefter's podcast.
Well, he was on 3HL.
Oh, really?
So the VP of broadcasting for the NFL, Mike North, was on 3HL earlier this week, I believe. It's on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube page. You can go watch it. It was posted one day ago. I haven't gotten the chance to listen to it yet, but he talked about Taylor Swift, the impact of Taylor Swift. There is something to that. Why the Titans didn't get more primetime games, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, go check that out.
You don't need the schedule maker to tell you why the Titans didn't get primetime games. Nobody wants to watch them yet.
I'm sure that's what he said. Yeah.
That's what he should have said.
I'm sure that's what he said.
That's true. Jordan is in logistics up next.
As my dumbest thing in sports has to go to NASCAR. This past weekend at the All-Star race, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Kyle Busch get into a fight, which NASCAR took great pleasure in promoting this fight, encouraging it, getting so much press from, and the most publicity they've gotten quite some time. Then they had the goal to fine Ricky Stenhouse $75,000, and then also suspend a couple of the crew team members for multiple weeks. I mean, so you're going to encourage the fight, but you're going to issue fines. Make it make sense.
Yeah, no, I can't. I saw this because they were all in on it. And by the way, stay on the line if you want to win the tickets because that's the best way for Jackson to get back in contact with you, to lean in on it for social media clicks. And obviously the people that are fining Stenhouse are not the same people who are posting on the NASCAR Instagram page, but you got to be aware of what's out on your social media channels before you hit somebody on that very same social media channel with a huge fine or penalty post that I saw floating around on NASCAR's Instagram today. A pretty good one. Sims is a student up next.
Hey, outside of Lucas's non-joke, my dumbest thing in sports this week is probably Twitter fans judging how good or bad a wide receiver is going to be based on videos.
Phone line cut out, but I understand what he's saying. Two, significant takeaways from OTA practice footage is a very dumb thing. Like I started the show with, there's going to be takes today. A lot of them are going to be stupid and unfounded because they're not really doing it's they're basically playing at football out there. They're not actually doing football things out there just yet. Mike works in cabinets.
Yeah, I was calling about the dumbest thing was Sunday night before the All-Star NASCAR race. The paratroopers, they jump out, and they're usually falling from the sky when they do the national anthem. Well, somebody jumped the gun, and while everybody is supposed to bow your heads, and the preacher's doing doing his thing, they're already falling from the sky, and the kids, you can see them peeking up, even though they're supposed to have their heads bowed down and everything. But by the time he got done with the prayer, they're already on the ground before they even played the national anthem. I just thought it was hilarious.
It's just a little bit of a logistical hiccup there, Mike. Nothing to see here. This is a pretty good one. Let's squeeze Danny in. Last one. Danny, up next.
Yeah, the dumbest thing in sports is by far the Louisville PD arresting Scotty Scheffler as he's trying to get into the dang golf tournament, as if police in general needed a reason for people to be annoyed with them. Louisville PD specifically the last few years has had some bad press for very good reasons. It's gotten to the point where the mayor of Louisville has now had to step in and say, we're going to absolutely review all of this. They've pushed back arraignment on the whole thing. If the charges aren't dropped by the time Scotty tees off this weekend, then Louisville's doing themselves a disservice. Dumbest thing in sports this year, dumbest thing in the world this week. Scotty Scheffler getting arrested by Louisville PD.
Thank you for the call, Danny. We appreciate it. That's some good nominees to go see Jim Gaffigan. All right. Who are you picking?
Who had the NASCAR benefiting from the fight and then punishing them for the fight?
Well, Jordan, but he dropped off. Yeah, everybody else stayed on hold.
I mean, let's squeeze in Jerry. See if Jerry could come in with one that just sways us.
All right, Jerry is a tech specialist up next.
Yeah, I don't have anything to contribute to the contest, but a clarification on what was discussed on 3HL with the NFL schedule guy. Basically, the short answer is, did Taylor Swift impact the scheduling process? The answer is yes. But the answer also is yes for every other concert, sporting event, truck race, whatever they do in those arenas, it all gets taken into account. But it was not scheduled around her. It was scheduled around events like it always is.
Yep, that's an important clarification. Thank you, Jerry. So, Danny, Sims, or Mike, who are you picking?
Jackson?
Scheffler was the dumbest, but I feel like it's a little bit of a ways out.
It's still within the context of the week.
The statute of limitations. It is not. It has been within the last week since the last dumbest thing in sports segment.
Now, I will say that I'm kind of with Louisville PD on this. Like, they made a mistake. Clearly and obviously they made a mistake. The car is marked to indicate that this is a golfer. I think the biggest upset out of any of this is that Scotty Scheffler's driving himself to the PGA Championship. That doesn't surprise you at all?
I don't know. NFL players drive themselves to the stadium for home games.
I don't know. I just assume that they have drivers for these things. I feel like you should. If you're having to navigate, I don't know. It doesn't feel different. Like you have player parking at a stadium. I guess you have player parking at a PGA Championship too. I just thought it was weird that he was driving himself. Either way, like, I'm kind of with the cops. If they told him to stop and he kept driving, even if he is Scotty Scheffler, they don't know he's Scotty Scheffler until you're booking him, and then you say, hey, Scotty, you want the full treatment? We'll put you in a jumpsuit. Take a picture. It'd be great, like Disneyland. That part was dumb.
The story is that one cop told them to go, and one cop was telling him to stop.
Okay. Excellent.
He's just sweating beads. Like, what do I do?
What do I do? What do I do? I'm going to be late. All right. Danny, congratulations. You're going to see Jim Gaffigan at the Ryman. Not this Saturday, but next. We appreciate all of you who called in and gave us your submissions. Coming up next in the final hour, the offensive position group Brian Callahan sounds the most excited about. And you'll hear more from DeAndre Hopkins on Traylon Burks. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. QC Kinetics is here to help you with that nagging joint pain. They are the best in the business, and they have revolutionized treatments for joint pain to get you moving again. They are the best in the business, and this is the most important time of year to make sure that you have access to your full mobility. Whether you're out hiking, jogging, biking, or playing on the beach, you don't want to be bogged down because you're dealing with those joint issues. QC's regenerative medicine protocols can restore and repair that damaged tissue with no surgery, no steroids, no drugs, and no downtime. It's the future of medicine. Tens of thousands of QC Kinetics Genetics patients around the country are living their best life this year because they made the call. QC medical professionals are under the direction of Dr. Mitchell Scheinkup, a former orthopedic surgeon who became a true pioneer in regenerative medicine because he knew there had to be a way. So call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation. Revolutionary treatments for joint pain are here. 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans were on the field yesterday for OTAs. Attendance was good for Brian Callahan's first OTAs as the head coach. Players that were not spotted included defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons, as well as Tavondre Sweat, Harold Landry, L'Jarius Sneed, Nicholas Petit-Frere, Jalen Duncan, and Colton Dowell, all due to working on their own or rehabbing inside. College baseball SEC tournament happening now in Hoover. LSU leads Kentucky 7-0, top of the 8th inning in a double elimination matchup. Later this afternoon, Tennessee taking on Vanderbilt after the Commodores took care of Florida with a 6-3 win on Tuesday. Double elimination matchup today. 4:30 is the first pitch between Vols and Vandy. Tennessee took 2 of 3 in the regular season series 2 weeks ago on West End. Tonight, the Western Conference Finals get underway in the NBA. Mavericks at Timberwolves, game 1 at 7:30. And in the NHL, conference finals start tonight in the East. The Rangers host the Panthers for game 1 at 7 p.m. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
We got a little pep talk to start the final hour. Jackson in here trying to rally the troops down the home stretch. 615-737-1045. Did you feel our performance in the first 2 hours necessitated a pep talk? What's wrong back there?
No, just, want to give you guys some encouragement, some positive reinforcement.
I don't know how to handle those things. We're with you till 1 o'clock. We will turn things over to Brad Hopkins and Blaine Bishop here in just a second. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in, you can live stream the show if you like on the F&M Bank chat. Titans OTAs, they are off today. They're doing some work at the facility, but not work on the practice field. They'll have another practice tomorrow before getting the long weekend off. I had no idea it was Memorial Day this coming weekend until Grace told me yesterday. So I guess we're off on Monday?
We are off on Monday. We'll be carrying best of stuff.
Lovely.
This coming Monday.
What does the best of for this show look like?
Just when the best of the best.
Yeah, but we do things so poorly on a regular basis. So are you finding the worst? Is that our best stuff, the worst stuff that we do?
It's a hard job Jackson has, I know from experience, to put that type of thing together.
Got some fun stuff coming up. I think that interview with Tyler Boyd might make the best of stuff, if you missed that. Our talk with Josh Pate from last week. Good stuff.
Boyd was good.
Boyd was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that visit. I want to try to do as many of them as I can in person, just because there's so many new players that I want to get to know, and I don't have as much locker room time as I used to. But was good of Tyler to take some time to jump on with us, and I thought he gave us some good insights on a couple of different things there. In the meantime, insights on what your offense is going to look like. This is where it starts. And while I'm not going to come away with any, huge takeaways about what the Titans' offense will be in 2024 based on one OTA practice, I can't tell you what your head coach is excited about. And there's probably a variety of things that your head coach is excited about. But one thing that he highlighted in particular that caught all of our attention.
That's a good question. I think Tajay's got a little bit a different route running ability. And Tony's he's a smoother runner. They're both really explosive. Those guys are the ones I'm probably of all the groups that we have. I think those guys are the ones that are the most exciting for me. Just all the different places you can put those guys in the formation, all the different ways you can get them the ball in the screen game, in the passing game. Really, really excited about what they've shown so far. Those guys are two really fantastic players. I'm happy we have those guys.
D-Hop is the one that got the headlines yesterday, but that should have been the headline, that the head coach is most excited about the running backs of all the different players that they've added. That's a pretty big deal. Now, I talked to Tony Pollard for a couple of minutes. Here is a part of that conversation, because I then went to Tony Pollard and asked him, hey, your head coach seems pretty fired up about you and Tajay together. How is this going to work for you guys?
Personality is almost night and day. I'm more the chill, laid-back guy. Tajay is the loud, outspoken one. On the field, we got a lot of similarities. it's going to be a nice 1-2 punch. I mean, we see it every day, just the ability to catch the ball out the backfield, being able to be so versatile, being able to do so many different things and just, keep the defensive guessing.
Who's got better routes?
I think I'm pretty nice with my routes now.
So, Tony Pollard thinks he's got better routes. We asked Brian Callahan specifically about the difference between the two, and you heard him say, well, there's a lot of things that you like about both of them, and he kind of sat there and thought about it because the whole point is to make them interchangeable. And this is the kind of, I don't want to say problem, but at least mental hurdle that I've been having to work through in the last couple of days. It's not a good thing that Derrick Henry's gone, right? Nobody's celebrating the fact that Derrick Henry's not on the Titans roster anymore, or that Derrick Henry is no longer the Tennessee Titans running back. But this is the better way to go about constructing an offense because you don't want your running backs to be a tell. I love the idea of the Titans offense not being married to any one player, not having to run things specifically through the prism of one particular player. Now, I completely understand and am 100% for the way that the Tennessee Titans ran their offense when Derrick Henry was in the backfield, because Derrick Henry is one of the most dominant football players to ever play this game and is probably going to be at some point in his career a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Nobody is saying that the Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry should have played a different style of football. But that time has come and gone, and now you're in a brave new world where you don't have to have a starting running back anymore. I'm not caught up in who's going to get the higher percentage of snaps between Tajay and Spears. Or, excuse me, between Tajay and Pollard. I really don't think fans should be either. Pollard probably has more savvy to him. He's just been in the league longer. He's played in more offenses. He's got more experience. He knows defenders better probably than Tajay does. But Tajay is a really, really nice compliment. So however you want to stack them, 1A, 1B, the point is that there's not two, or the point is that there's two that can operate as one.
All we do is talk about how similar they are and how they can be utilized in similar ways. How it won't, it's not a tell for defenses. But the differences are more interesting to me at this point because all we've done is talk about the similarities. And Callahan talked about it a little bit. He said, yeah, Tony Pollard, probably a little more of a smoother runner. Tajay maybe, better out of the backfield as a route runner catching passes. So, okay, is that a hint into how those two impact the game more just in terms of production? Do we see more rush yards from Tony Pollard and more catches in 2024 from Tajay Spears? Like, we can talk about their similarities and how you can run your offense the same no matter which one of them. They're interchangeable, all of those things. But they're going to impact the team in different ways in 2024. I'm interested to see what that is, and Callahan gave us kind of a glimpse into that. The first time we've actually heard anything about differences. And Tony Pollard talking about how different they are off the field, too. But Callahan gave us the first glimpse into, Pollard, bit of a smoother runner. Tajay, maybe a better route runner and catching passes.
Somebody in the comment section, and I know they're just providing an explanation, so I'm not going to bite this person's head off, but Jay, is it Fussell51 on YouTube says, fantasy football is why people care. Who do you draft? I don't care who you draft in fantasy football. I don't care about your fantasy football team. We're not going to, have we ever talked fantasy football around here?
Not really, but I am curious, who is going to be that number one fantasy football name out of the Titans now?
Pollard.
Because you still think Pollard?
Oh, yeah.
Splitting all those reps with Spears?
Yeah. Because I think he's a former Dallas Cowboy. People are going to see Tony Pollard's name. They're going to think, oh, he's the running back there. Derrick Henry's not there anymore, and they're going to draft Tony Pollard. Now,
Sure.
I assume that fantasy football, like people who are serious about fantasy football.
I'm talking about people that actually do fantasy football because they know about fantasy football. Like Derrick Henry was how many years was Derrick Henry just one of the kings of, since probably going into 2019. Derrick Henry, right there, RB1, 2, or at lowest 3 in fantasy football running backs. I don't know who that number one option is out of the Titans offense now. Is it DeAndre Hopkins still? Is it Will Levis for deeper leagues that there are more quarterbacks? I don't know. It's interesting. Because that answer was Derrick Henry very, very easily for quite a few years. But do you think that we see tangibly the Titans run the ball more than the Bengals have the last few years because of what they have now with those two options?
Well, run the ball more than what? Because do you have numbers specifically?
The Bengals ran the football in 2023, this past season. Team rushing attempts. They were 30th in the NFL with 383. In 2022, they were 29th in the NFL, 399. In 2021, they were 19th in the NFL. In 2020, Joe Burrow's rookie year, they were 18th. So more middle of the pack in those first 2 years of Burrow. 21, obviously, the year they went to the Super Bowl. And then the last 2 seasons, bottom 3, bottom 4 in the NFL in terms of just straight up the amount of times they run the football in any given season. Obviously, the Titans have been at or near the very top of the league in that category for basically the entirety of the Vrabel era.
You know what that tells me, though? That it doesn't really have much to do with the running backs at all. It's more about the quarterback. Because what's the best way that you can support a young quarterback who's trying to come into his own? Well, you run the hell out of the football. You make life easier. If you have a running game that can support that way. That's what they should have done around Trevor Lawrence to make his life easier. And I think that's what they tried to ultimately build before Doug Peterson came in. So I would anticipate that they would be higher in the league in terms of just end-of-season carries than 30th because Levis is young. And if you want to take pressure off the young quarterback. And Burrow earned the right to have that kind of lopsided offense because he's the more reliable option. The passing game is the more efficient way for the Bengals to move the ball at a certain point in time. So if they do end up having a higher amount of rushing attempts than the Bengals did in the last couple of years, I think that's more about supporting the young quarterback before you figure out how much the quarterback can do unto himself. Because there's no question that Joe Burrow's driving that offense. And maybe they didn't have questions because he was the first overall pick when they took him. But it's like Russ in the early Seattle Super Bowl years. Russ is the passenger to Marshawn Lynch's, offense. That was Marshawn Lynch's offense, and then, of course, the Legion of Boom. So I would anticipate that they would at least start out that way, and maybe as Levis develops and grows and becomes more, I don't want to say more trustworthy to the coaching staff, but continues to earn the coaching staff's trust, you may see those numbers skew in future seasons. 615-737-1045. We'll take your calls on the Titans coming up next. You'll also hear from DeAndre Hopkins on more than just Traylon Burks, even though that was what seemed to carry the headlines yesterday. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show here on 104.5 The Zone. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is the number. Kentucky run-ruled by LSU. The final in, 8 innings? Looks like 11-0. LSU, the first double-digit seed to win an SEC tournament game by 10 or more runs, according to the SEC Network. We're watching the coverage of that live now. The Vols and Vanderbilt will play tonight, or rather this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So 3HL will be on the air. They'll keep you updated with the latest. And we're going to reach out to Mike Wilson of the Knoxville News-Sentinel to react to the result of the Vols and Vandy game tomorrow with us.
Did you see the Ole Miss Mississippi State finish last night?
That is a tough way for Ole Miss to get bounced. That is a really, really tough way for Ole Miss to get bounced. But just an electric result and a real offense hard to come by in that game for sure. But it was a great nightcap to what was a fun day of college baseball in the first handful of games. We've been talking Titans, though, and we're going to pivot to some Traylon Burks stuff because he carried a little bit of the news cycle yesterday here locally, but not for the reasons that he should have. And I'll explain what I mean by that here in just a second. But we'll go to the phones. Rob is a lifestyle manager. Rob, what is help me understand what that is.
Well, that's a question we get asked a lot. Really what we do is our job is to make sure that when the family leaves for the day and you go about doing your life and stuff, like when you come back home, you shouldn't have to worry about what your house is like. Like you should just be able to worry about your time with your family, your time with your kids, and just being able to enjoy.
Oh no.
We just help you kind of set up a system in your home to help organize you, help set you up with whether you want a plan for long distance or just a little bit.
Yeah.
We help take care of the house.
Love that. Okay.
I love that. Manage my lifestyle, Rob. I need it.
No, I honest to God may take you up on that,
man.
Rob. We may be in contact after this.
Dude, you need to look us up on Instagram. Double OG's our name. OOG.
Okay, I'll do that. What's your thoughts on the Titans here?
So I first of all hope y'all are having a great day. I love the show, love you guys. And I had a question. So I'm also a Saints fan, and I remember back in 2019 how exciting it was when Alvin Kamara came into the league. I was going to ask you, do you think that Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard could be kind of a similar situation to that Mark Ingram Alvin Kamara tandem that we had back then? Thank you so much for taking my call. Hope y'all have a great day.
I appreciate the call, Rob. So they don't have anybody on the roster that's Ingram in that scenario. Because Ingram, for sure, a power back.
Yep.
And
we didn't expect Kamara to take the league by storm the way he did, too. He was, a third-round pick?
Yeah, and Kamara's value in that system was something that, teams weren't really looking at the two-back setup quite like that just yet. It's, not that Sean Payton should get credit for revolutionizing the way that running backs are deployed, but his utilization of Kamara in that system, and obviously having Drew Brees to execute all of it, made the Saints really deadly. So in this instance, it's not like Pollard, both of them are three-down backs. So when I say power back, it doesn't mean that neither of them have power, but they're not going to run the football in the same way that Derrick Henry did, right? They're not going to just try and physically outmatch you. They're going to try and make you miss. They're going to try to get them in space. They're going to try and maximize the utilization of the playmakers by trying to find ways to get them around that initial contact, whether that's deploying them outside on the or in the formation, whether that's having them run routes out of the backfield, whether that's spreading the wide receivers out and creating lanes for the rushing attack to be more efficient and more effective. So there's less bodies in the box as you try and work your way around the defense. There's, it's Kamara and Ingram is kind of your prototypical thunder and lightning, right? Or lightning and thunder. Whereas this situation is more lightning and lightning.
Henry Spears would be much more likened to Ingram Kamara.
For sure.
Yeah. This is lightning and lightning for sure. Are we going to do the thing where we try to come up with the name for the duo?
I don't ever do the thing. You do the thing. Are you going to do the thing? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves.
Like if they combine for 1,000 yards, maybe like S&P 1,000 or something. Thank you. Thank you, Jackson. I needed that. It sounded forced, but I'll take it.
It's the S&P 500.
Yeah, I know that, Buck, but if they each rush for
it's not
500 yards, it combines for, just move on.
If they each rush for about 500, I think that could be pretty good.
No.
Okay.
No. If they each rush for 500 and that's all the productivity that you get out of these running backs
I'm
this
not
year.
saying it's good for the Titans, but I'm saying it would be a
Great
good
for
nickname.
a nickname, bad for the football team.
Titan Thor on the FNM Bank chat says TNT.
I don't want nicknames. Do not send us your nicknames.
Trippin' Titan says, why does this upset Buck so much?
Do not call me with nicknames. Do not text, message us with nicknames. Don't do it. I don't like nicknames.
I'm going to call you at 3 o'clock in the morning with just spewing nicknames and then hanging up.
You being up at 3 a.m. before I'm up at 3 a.m. would be an upset, so good luck.
At Buck Rising is where you direct your DMs.
I don't want that at all. What I do want is some level of productivity out of Traylon Burks. And I'm not really caught up in the idea of Traylon Burks and Tyler Boyd the way that I was at the onset. Lucas, before you left for vacation, we talked about Tyler Boyd or any free agent wide receiver signing being kind of a notch against Traylon Burks. And while I do think there's some truth to that, Boyd is such a specific player in the scope of the offense that I don't think Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, or Tyke Tolbert, the wide receivers coach, really ever envisioned Burks contributing in the role that they plan for the slot. So it's really not cutting into Traylon Burks too much. What's cutting into Traylon Burks is, one, his health, and two, the players that they've put directly in front of him, which are right now I just combined them, Hopkins and Ridley.
You just did it.
Hopley.
You did it.
That's a nickname.
Hopley. Okay, but this is why I was, because you adamantly disagreed with me that I did not think the signing of Boyd was this reigning indictment of Traylon Burks, that we are just learning something new, that this staff clearly does not think anything of Traylon Burks. Like, I did not, and I agreed that it is probably, I think it's worse for Kyle Phillips than it is for Traylon Burks.
Yep.
It is worse for Kyle Phillips that now Tyler Boyd is on this roster and Jaquan Jackson is on this roster, potentially as a punt returner, than anything and what it might mean for Traylon Burks.
And so that's something that I talked to Greg Cosell about on the latest episode of The Install. We're going to do another episode this afternoon at 3 p.m. We'll tape that, and then you'll find that in your podcast feeds and on the Zone YouTube channel around 6 p.m. today. So Greg Cosell explaining the ideal deployment or the best possible deployment for Traylon Burks and the new Titans offense. Of offensive line play here in Tennessee. Greg, I don't want to ask you what this means for Traylon Burks outright, because I loved the answer from Brian Callahan when he was asked this question by us, because he said this doesn't take away from Traylon's snaps at all. This isn't the role that we have for Traylon, and whatever preconceived notion fans might have or media might have about Traylon Burks, this doesn't impact him. So I just wanted to bounce that off you because I think in a perfect world, you would like to see Traylon Burks come into his own as a former first-round pick, and his body has been the primary source of his underachievement. It just continues to let him down, whether it's knee sprains, concussions, or otherwise. But the idea of Traylon Burks in this offense is still going to have packages of plays that are specifically designed to maximize his skill set.
And I would be, look, I know the immediate reaction, visceral reaction to one, the signing of Ridley, and now the signing of Boyd is well, Burks is done in Tennessee. That would really surprise me because keep in mind, Hopkins has 1 year left on his deal. He's over 30. Boyd is a 1 year signing. I think he's 30 right now. Yeah. So, Burks is still a guy that you're going to look to. I mean, he's a first round pick, and he's going into his third year, is it not?
Correct. And by the way, Ridley is 29, going to be 30 this year.
Right. So, unless something dramatic happens, I'd be very surprised if Traylon Burks is not the fourth wide receiver who ends up playing. Again, you never know how it all plays out, ends up playing 15, 20 snaps a game. And, if he can become what I personally believe his skill set can allow him to become. And again, you hit it right on the head. The injuries, I mean, if you're not available, that's a problem. I certainly don't know Traylon Burks, so I don't know all the other factors involved, but I would really be surprised if he's not on this roster. I believe he will be on this roster.
So that is Greg Cosell explaining how he sees Traylon Burks' usage playing out. He said he wouldn't be surprised if you see Burks in this offense, if he's available, play 15 to 20 snaps just based on packages that they'll put together. Do you feel validated?
I do feel validated.
You should.
I do. The flack that I got for saying the Titans signing Tyler Boyd does not mean that it's an indictment on Traylon Burks or that they are done. They are out on Traylon Burks. Tyler Boyd is a better player at that position in the slot in the NFL than Traylon Burks. There is no question about this. So I didn't understand why that was the natural reaction that, we're learning something today about Traylon Burks.
That is a natural reaction. Lucas, of course it's a natural reaction. You got a first-round pick that doesn't play and you're still out here pursuing wide receivers. I don't fault people, and not just as a means of explaining my position on it, but I don't fault people at all for making that assumption. I think it's perfectly natural. What you did was the correct thing, which is just because you're looking at this a certain kind of way doesn't mean that the coaching staff is looking at this a certain kind of way, which is a very nuanced approach, and that's not what sports radio is.
Well, but my reaction to it was also based on an assumption, and it was an assumption that, the Titans coaching staff doesn't look at Traylon Burks as a reliable option in the slot, or at least not more reliable than Tyler Boyd, because that's a very easy assumption to make that probably everybody in the league would make.
Now, Traylon Burks, the thing that stood out to me there is the idea of Traylon Burks' future viability in the Titans offense. Because I would be surprised to see him make such great strides that they're considering him beyond just this season, though if you've got a former first-round pick on the roster, and you think that he's good enough to make it work in your system, and he proves to you that you can trust him, and he's available, then it's completely... I would hate a world, though, where you let DeAndre Hopkins walk at the end of the season because Traylon Burks is there. I would have a very hard time justifying that in my head, even if Traylon Burks, everything goes to plan this year.
I was going to say, what would need to happen? I mean, in order for that to be the case,
he would have to be perfect in his opportunities for me to feel good about it. Like there would have to be more than the number of plays that I can count on one hand that Traylon Burks has made an impact in a game on.
A trend would have to be reversed. Like the availability or lack thereof, that trend that he has established there early in his career would have to be completely reversed in the opposite direction.
I'm seeing some comments from a couple of people in the F&M Bank chat, and you can interact Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch there if you like. Emmett Jones says, WTF is 15 snaps, LOL, saying that basically, I'm assuming that this is Emmett's position, the idea that 15 to 20 snaps in the offense would be anything substantial for Traylon Burks or anything meaningful for Traylon Burks is at least how that comment hits me. So, Emmett, if I'm misconstruing that, please feel free to give me some additional context. But think about this, okay? I've said this before, and I even think before the Boyd signing, I want Traylon Burks to be a nice surprise, a pleasant surprise. The Titans want him to have some kind of surprise element, some kind of explosive surprise element to their offense, and I think that can be very easily accomplished in 15 to 20 snaps a game.
There's another first-round pick on the other side of the ball that you could say the exact same thing about. In another position group where they have done arguably the most amount of work on the roster to address, in Caleb Farley, right?
If you got 15 to 20 snaps out of Caleb Farley a game.
Oh, my goodness. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and Farley and Burke's situation are the most similar because it's not, here's the thing with Farley, okay? Farley, when he's healthy, was not a good corner. Like that Washington game lives in my memory of, is it Diami Brown just taking him for a ride?
We've seen Burks flash in ways that we have not seen from Farley.
Because at least there has been flash. Now, corners, you're more often noticing them when they do things wrong as opposed to, just going through a routine play. So I don't want to boom or bust Caleb Farley that way, but there was, even as small as the Traylon Burks sample size is, there is more for me to bank on Traylon Burks than there is Caleb Farley being a meaningful contributing player. But there are similarities, there are parallels to their situation because both of them have had the early stages of their career, and it's getting pretty early for Caleb Farley because this is a contract year for him. If you got 15 to 20 snaps out of either of them in this year, in a contract year for Caleb Farley, and what is not a contract year yet for Treylon Burks, but next year will be, I think you would probably consider that a success based on the circumstances that have come to pass before that. It doesn't make the last 3 years of Caleb Farley right or the last 2 years of Treylon Burks right. But I would, and I have to remind myself of this too. So it's not just a lesson for you guys or a message for you guys, but it's a lesson for me as well. To not hold them to account so much on the things that we consider past sins. I need to keep reminding myself that for Caleb Farley and for Treylon Burks and for Malik Willis and for NPF and for Chigakonkwo and for Jalen Duncan, that it's about this year. It's about what you do this year, not the sins of seasons past, okay? Even as hard as that is to remove yourself from, the coaching staff here is going to give them a fresh start. So in the same way that the coaching staff is going to give all these players who have been here new opportunities to compete for jobs and, potentially to have success with in ways that they weren't able to break through on the other side or succeed with on the other side, then I feel like I have to keep that same energy, even as hard as that is to do with Caleb Farley and Treylon Burks, because all you can do is focus on the negative with those two.
Sure, but I don't think that means that you can't take a sample size information that's been put out there from them playing football in the NFL and apply it to opinions like of Kyle Phillips and if he's a viable option as a punt returner, of legitimate concerns about NPF being your starter at right tackle while leaving your mind open to improvement and what kind of leap he might be able to take under Bill Callahan. Like, you can still use that information from years past and apply it. I don't think it's just clean slate. We're starting from square one in terms of their respective position battles and whatnot. Sure, that's probably how it is in the early onset. But for us, as we talk about these things, then I absolutely think it's fair to pull back things like that from the last 3 or so years.
Oh, yeah, the coaching staff is going to do that too. That's what tape study is for. They're going to look at the ways that they use the players, and they're going to figure out what works and what doesn't. But I'm saying on aggregate, right? Like, instead of coming into this year, and I don't think you have to do them any favors, but just in consideration of the fresh start, the way that the coaching staff is going to look at it is, all right, clean slate. Here we go. Here's what we're going to teach you. Here's how we're going to evaluate you based on the stuff that we're teaching you. Here's what we've seen in years past, but this is not the system that we're running anymore. So, yes, Kyle Phillips dropping punts is always going to be in the back of my mind anytime they send him back there, if they send him back there to return punts. I'm going to have that in the back of my head. Treylon Burks having passes bounce off his hands deep down the field when he's already gotten behind the defensive back, that's going to be in the back of my head when he's out there on the field, and also concussions and knee sprains. Caleb Farley, his back is always going to be in the back of my mind as I watch him play football because, oh my God, at what point is he just going to spontaneously combust? But I need to center myself by saying, okay, new opportunity. Now you start to judge them based on the work that they're putting in now. And the work that they're putting in now is Caleb Farley's practicing. That's something. It's small. It's very, very small. It's just the fundamental baseline, but it's progress because last year he wasn't. So now you start to see where that builds. Treylon Burks as well. Treylon didn't do anything spectacular yesterday. Didn't do anything ghastly either. So I'm not losing my mind about Treylon Burks under Brian Callahan because there's no reason to yet, even as I understand the context for all of those players coming in.
A house money feel for both, right? Caleb Farley and Treylon Burks. Trippin' Titans on the F&M Bank chat says, so Burks is like the lime slice that you might get with your pad thai.
Oh, I like that.
I like that too.
Because I had pad thai over the weekend, and the lime slice makes all the difference in the world.
Calvin Ridley is the noodles. DeAndre Hopkins, how do you like your pad thai? Like chicken, pork?
Well, my favorite pad thai is with chicken and shrimp.
Okay, perfect. DeAndre Hopkins is the chicken, Tyler Boyd is the shrimp, and if Treylon Burks are the peanuts that you sprinkle on top, perfect. You're good. You're set.
John Gall says, it's been one day, dude, talking about somebody else is bringing up, but NPF isn't practicing. Okay, well, something to take into context. Last call for phone calls if you got them, 615-737-1045. We'll do that before we turn you over to Brad Hopkins and Blaine Bishop coming up next. Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you, as they have helped so many guys over the course of the last decade deal with erectile dysfunction. And not just ED, their ED and weight loss treatments truly change lives. And with no surgery, they are seeing success rates as high as 90%. The Tennessee Men's Clinic specializes in seeing guys who think they're out of luck and are looking to regain hope that they can be successful in the bedroom and beyond. They even offer same or next day appointments. And they've been doing this work, like I said, for a decade. The urologist and providers at the Tennessee Men's Clinic have helped guys with ED and weight loss, and they now even offer aesthetic enhancements and cosmetic procedures. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is the best place to get that support that you need, because the reality is pills often quit working and guys start making excuses for not coming to bed. So stop thinking about it and call the Tennessee Men's Clinic, 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or go online to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com and book an appointment today. So many people trust Two Rivers Ford. Football players, working moms, business owners. Why? Because Two Rivers Ford has been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Mortgage professionals in Middle Tennessee. Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, owner of Wesley Mortgage. I'm a true local, born in Mount Juliet, met my wife at MTSU, and I live in Franklin. While every other mortgage company is cutting back, we're rapidly expanding and investing. Are you sick of feeling like an operations employee to ensure your loans are closed on time? When you look around your office, it doesn't look the same. You're missing people. You're missing your friends. Is anyone having fun? We're having fun every day. As the official mortgage provider of the Tennessee Titans, I've personally recruited the top local operations team to ensure your loans are closed on time. So you get paid. So you get to spend time building your business, and you get to have fun at work again. Now is the time to join our team. To start a confidential conversation with our local president and COO, visit whywesley.com. whywesley.com.
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Last call for phone calls if you got them. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in.
One of the greatest guitar solos of all time, this song.
Well, speaking of solos, we should go a cappella, and we should lead off with Cheeseburger to start this last segment. Hey, buddy.
What's going on, Buck and Lucas? How y'all doing today?
We're good, buddy. Hope you are, too.
Yep, I'm doing good, too. I was just letting you know that, hey, we have our house for sale right now out here at Kingston Springs, Tennessee, so it's on the market, so we're looking at moving here soon.
Okay, well, I hope that goes well for you, Cheeseburger.
Yeah, we're just taking it day by day. I'm still Titans fan, ride or die Titans fan, and hey, I root for Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt's our local team, so I want to see Vanderbilt wipe the floor with Tennessee today in the SEC baseball tournament. Let's go, BU. Come on now, let's go. To all Tennessee Vols fans, I'm sorry, but Vanderbilt is going to get hot right now. It's tournament time, so guess what? Let's go, BU. Let's put these Tennessee fans away today. Let's go. Yeah, you can book it, Buck Rising, and I like the transitions the Titans made this offseason with Jerry Sneed, and I like our draft picks. I'm excited about this upcoming season. Our receivers, Calvin Ridley, we got D-Hop again. So, I think the Titans are going to be a super show to watch this year. Let's go, baby. It's the Buck Rising show all day, every day, including Cheeseburger, too. Oh, yeah. Let's go, baby. Yeah.
Thanks, Cheeseburger.
I love how he includes
We
himself.
had to get him going. We had to play his music for him to realize that it was time to freestyle. Thank you, buddy. All right, Chad is in sales up next. Hey, Chad.
Hey.
What's up?
I just wondering to Mister, I don't like kids. How did you make it through your little Two Rivers commercial interacting with the little fella in the football?
Very awkwardly, Chad. The kid was much better about it than I was. Absolutely. It was a tough 2 hours for me, but he was great.
For those who don't know, Buck interacts with children as if they are full-grown adults.
I don't know how to talk to him. It's a weird exchange for me. The whole, Chad, did it look awkward in the commercial? Because he's talking about the Two Rivers Ford commercials I'm doing.
Yeah, not really. You pulled it off well.
That's a great editing job.
Yeah. They didn't include you introducing yourself to them. Hello, I am Buck. What is your name?
What is your name, young man?
How do you do,
sir?
How do you do, sir?
No, him and his entire family. It was a lot of fun to shoot those TV commercials, so I'm glad you guys are getting a kick out of them. Matthew is in adult entertainment to wrap things up today. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, Buck. I heard you earlier talking about nicknames, and I've got something because I'm on Team Lucas, all right? I think we ought to start calling you the Little Buckaroo every day.
Every day.
I like it. It's got a Nashville flair to it. On today, the Little Buckaroo and the Italian Stallion, baby.
Thank you for the call, Matthew. Well, how much taller am I than you?
I think you're about 2 to 3 inches shorter.
Okay. Keep your powder dry.
Someone did say on the FNM Bank chat, too, like, for someone named Buck, it is rich for you to go at people who want to give nicknames. You hate nicknames. You don't want to hear anybody giving nicknames, whether it's Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears or to the Titans wide receiver trio, yet you do call yourself Buck.
So should we start calling you Andrew? It's basically the question.
Put it on a poll. Polls, please.
Oh, hang on.
What?
Big news from the Preds yesterday that you missed when you were at practice.
Yes, I'm sorry. Let's do this.
The Preds trade defenseman Ryan McDonough and a 2024 fourth-round pick via Edmonton to Tampa Bay. They receive a 2025 second-rounder and a 2024 seventh-rounder. It accomplishes a couple things in that it lets Ryan McDonough go home to the place where he won the Stanley Cup a few years ago, where he has a ton of great relationships and potentially finish out his career in Tampa. So I'm sure McDonough is appreciative of that. It also frees up almost $7 million in salary for the next 2 years. And there is some, some hubbub about the Preds potentially making a move for a big-time forward, whether that's a Mitch Marner or otherwise. There is room there to operate, to bring in somebody to make a significant impact.
It's hullabaloo.
Hullabaloo.
What did you say?
Hubbaboo.
I thought he was like Hubba Bubba Bubblegum
Is
or
it
something like.
Hullabaloo? Is that
Hubbaboo?
It certainly wasn't Hubbaboo.
Whatever you said, it's not that.
It's Hullabaloo. Yeah, Hullabaloo, a commotion, a fuss. What is Hubbaboo in the Urban Dictionary?
I don't want to know.
Yeah. Probably some very, very graphic sex act. All right, polls. What I was going for. What occasion?
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What position group on the Titans offense are you most excited about? 66.8% say wide receiver naturally, 18.7% say quarterback, 10% say offensive line, only 4.4% voted running back, which Brian Callahan says he is most excited about.
People are saying on YouTube that they don't hear the poll intros anymore, Jackson. Is that a technical issue?
Copyrighted music.
Oh,
some of them are. Some of them are.
Some of them are?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate.
Like we use the Borat music from the movie.
Oh, well then, yeah, there's got to be some kind of carrot for the FM radio audience, all right? We can't give you all the free stuff on YouTube all the time.
What is your expectation of Treylon Burks in 2024? Scoob says, just stay on the field. Karen says, just stay healthy. Sean says, 400 to 500 yards as a rotational piece.
Yeah, I like that last one, and that's something that Slay refuses. Slay's still being a coward, even though he's texting us right now during the show about not wanting to bet me Treylon Burks over under 800 yards to wear the helmet of shame. That's the punishment. You have to wear the helmet of shame and a Treylon Burks jersey for the entire show. Whoever loses the bet, that's the move.
Who you got today? Vols or Vandy? 74.6% go Vols. Today, 4:30 is the first pitch in Hoover.
I'd like to see either one of them advance just so we have something local to talk about, but it does seem like Tennessee should handle that.
And I have one final poll for the two of you because I forgot to mention I have knickknacks. I brought knickknacks from Italy. So, Buck/Jackson, who wants the shot glass with the Italia, the Italian national team logo on it, and who wants the bottle opener / fridge magnet with like a Torino Italian flag little art decorative thing?
You did not bring us back a shot glass and a bottle opener that goes on the fridge from
I want
Italy.
the shot glass.
What do you want? Okay, I guess process elimination, you get the bottle opener. Okay. Those are the polls.
Not even a wine opener? Can't even get a wine opener? A bottle opener.
How about nothing then?
It's the worst knickknacks ever. That's the show. We appreciate you guys hanging out. Check out the podcast. You can watch the replay on YouTube if you want. Thanks to Tyler Boyd and Dan Lust for making the show a little more fun today. If you missed either of those interviews, like I said, podcast is available for you. Prime time tonight at 7. Brad Hopkins and Blaine Bishop. They're next.